All righty, it's good to be in the Lord's house tonight. Good to see everybody out. If you have your Bibles, go to the book of Judges, chapter number 10 tonight. Judges, chapter number 10. And we'll look at a few characters here. We'll look at two quickly, and then I'd like to do just, I guess we're just only getting to two of them tonight. We're setting the stage for the third one. Lord willing, he'll come up next time as we look into the book of Judges. But Judges, chapter number 10 tonight, we'll see what the Lord's got for us here. In verse number 10, or verse number 1 of chapter 10. And after Abimelech, there arose to defend Israel Tola the son of Puah, the son of Dodo, a man of Issachar. And he dwelt in Shamir in Mount Ephraim. And he judged Israel 23 years, and died, and was buried in Shamir. And after him arose Jair, a Gileadite, and judged Israel 22 years. And he had 30 sons that rode on 30 ass colts, and they had 30 cities, which are called Havajar unto this day, which are in the land of Gilead. And Jair died and was buried in Cummon. So we have here these first two judges, and I want to brush over them quite quickly. As I was reading and studying, one writer had it this way to say. He said, when there's not much about them in the Bible, it makes it real hard to write about them. And my philosophy has always been just to preach what the Bible's got on them, not try to make something out of nothing. So I just want to give you real quick tonight about these two men, and then we'll hit the rest of this chapter. So this Tola, the son of Puah, he's got 23 good years. And pretty much all we can glean from him is that he has moved in here to Mount Ephraim so that he's in the center of the land of Israel so they can get to him easier. And then Jair there, he's got 22 good years. And then he's got 30 sons that he uses almost like his little sheriffs. That little wording there, how that they have these colts that they ride on. He has sent them out into the land to help police the land and help to have the land in more order there, that people could get to them instead of having to come all the way to him. And then each one of these had a city which they were based in. And that's about all we can get out of the text about these men. But in verse number 6 there, it begins to pick up and set the stage for the next judge. So as I've made my notes tonight, I had Tola, Jair, and then I have judgeless. So we're going to be in a judgeless period here at the tail end of this, where they're going to get themselves into some trouble. And we'll see what the Lord has to say about it. In verse number 6, and the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord. I wonder if he got tired of writing that. It seems like every time we look at Judges, that's written somewhere in the text. Here we go again. They've done evil in the sight of the Lord again. And served Balaam. Here we go again. We done tried this one. It ain't worked out the first time, the second time, the third time. It ain't going to work out this time either. And Ashtaroth. Yep, we know that one as well. And the gods of Syria, and the gods of Zidon, and the gods of Moab, and the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines, and forsook the Lord and served not him. My goodness. At this point in time, it feels like they've just went out there and they've got like one of those little bingo cards and they're trying to hit every god they possibly can to worship, because the only one that they're not worshiping is the true and living God that they ought to be worshiping. They've tried everybody around them here. They have looked for any excuse they can to not go and to serve God. They have tried each and everything they possibly can. And how often is that repeated in today's time? Folks will try anything that they possibly can outside of worshiping God and serving God to try to fill that hole in their heart. But it said, if we study and look at this, some believe that they welcome these other gods in as a way to find common ground with their neighbors. Common ground with their neighbors. If you were to look at a map of Israel here, all of these territories are all their neighbors. They're all around the land of Israel. And what happens from time to time when we sit here, and I said that one of these two judges had 23 good years, the other had 22 good years. That's 45 years after. 45 years have passed where everything is good. They've had a peace in the land, so to speak. They've got real chummy with their neighbors, if I could say it like that. And now it's got to the point where we've got to find some common ground. So what's going to happen in the text? They've got to that point to where all these other lands and nations around them are influencing them, and in order to get along with them and to not be so different anymore, to get along with the lands around them, we decide to try out all of their little g gods. Now there's a little bit of foreshadowing here in the text. Why did the children of Israel want a king? Y'all remember the reason they wanted a king? They didn't want a king because they were tired of God, so to speak. They wanted a king, and they'll tell you this, because they wanted to be like all the nations around them. There's a big problem there when a Christian, whether it's way back when in the book of Judges or it's way over now in today's time, when we get to that point to where we look around at everybody else and say, I want to be just like them. I want to be like all of those around me. Because when we begin to make up our mind that we want to blend with everybody around us, we're no longer the light of the world. We're no longer shining out for Christ. We're no longer living in a way that is pleasing unto God. To be a friend of God is to be in enmity with the world. There, we cannot serve both. We have got to get to the point where we pick one or the other. But there's so many folks here tonight, so many folks in the world tonight that are trying to ride the fence. Now, I'm not the first preacher to say that, and I won't be the last. There's a lot of folks today that want to try to straddle that fence and have one foot in the world and one foot in the church, and then it depends on what day it is of which foot they're standing on. I heard a preacher say it this way one time. We talk about this fence that's getting straddled, but every fence in the world is owned by somebody. Every single fence. I wonder who owns the fence that folks are straddling. Kind of hit home when that preacher said that to me. Who owns the fence that's being straddled? You see that border wall or fence that we have down there now between us and Mexico? It's not right on the line. It's on our side of the line so that we can control it and so that we can maintain it. We own the fence. Who owns the fence when we get to the point where we are trying to straddle it and put one foot in the world and one foot in the church? I would say that tonight that is the devil's fence. If we're trying to straddle it, he's already got us in his territory. But they believe that these other gods were worshipped as a way to find common ground, a way to be welcoming. I'd venture to say tonight, when we have to leave God to try to appease somebody else, they aren't worth it. If we have to sacrifice where we stand in order to appease those around us, we ought not be trying to appease them no way. It's a waste of our time to try to do that. If you have to sacrifice what you know is right for someone else, they aren't worth it. A couple of times a year in the spring, I have to go to Jackson one time, and I've got to go to Biloxi for a work conference. And while I'm down there, every night after the conference, it's everybody that works for all the engineers for MDOT that all work together for the whole state. We all go down there, and we get to see folks from different districts. And it never fails, every single year, I'm going to get invited to go and eat. And I'll go out and eat supper with some of these folks. And every single time I sit around the table, when you begin to look, this one orders alcohol, and this one orders alcohol, and this one orders alcohol, and I order my sweet tea. And they begin to look at me. And I've had a couple times where they have looked at me bewildered because I'm not ordering any alcohol to drink. Because I don't want any of that. I'm not going to sacrifice my values to fit in with those around the table. And I've noticed the way that they look makes them feel uncomfortable, the fact that I'm sitting there not drinking like they are drinking. And now all these folks, I'm not pulling the wool over their eyes. They know that I'm a preacher. They know that I don't drink. They understand that. A few of them respect that. And even when I'm there, they won't order alcohol. But then there's also other nights. We might be down there for 3 nights on the conference. I only get invited to go eat one of the 3 nights. There's a reason I don't get invited the other 2 nights. That's because they're going somewhere else, and they don't want the preacher with them. They don't want the preacher with them. Now, I can make a choice. I can continue to order my sweet tea and just sit there and smile at them and just go on about my business and just be me. Or if I wanted to, and I wanted to make everybody feel real comfortable around me, I could sacrifice what I know is right, and I could order some alcohol and sit there with them. I'm not doing it. Not going to do it, so don't worry about that. But I know the reason that I'm not doing it is because I ought not do it. I'm not going to sacrifice my stance on things and what I know is right in order to make somebody else comfortable around me. It's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to me to sacrifice my testimony and the way that I live my life and the way that people see me in order to make somebody else around me more comfortable. It's not worth it. I'm not going to do it there. I could, but I'm not. But as I've gone through that, I've noticed from time to time that it's never them not ordering their alcohol to make me feel comfortable. It's always them wishing I would order some so that they feel comfortable. I don't know if y'all have ever noticed that in the world. It seems like it's never the one with the higher standards and all the lower standards raising up to meet them, but they want you to lower down to meet them where they're at. You ever heard the little saying, sin loves company? Sin loves company. They want somebody else in that with them so they no longer feel bad about what they're doing. They no longer feel conviction about what they're doing because they know they have done wrong. And I'm just using that example tonight because that's the one that pops in my mind and it fits my life. But there's plenty other circumstances as well. Next time you're at the workplace and all of your coworkers are talking bad about the boss, go up to them and just see what happens when you say, oh, I think our boss is doing a wonderful job and I'm glad they're our boss. Just see the faces that they're going to give you. They are going to look at you like you've got two heads. Why? Because they don't want you to come in and downgrade what they're saying. They want you to jump on board with them and make it worse. They want you to get on board with that. And if you don't, you become an ice cube in that situation and you diffuse it, so to speak. Everybody kind of looks at you like you've lost it a little bit. Why? Because they didn't want somebody to come in and have a higher standard than they did. What's happening here in the text is they have begun to try these little g gods in order to get along with those around them. We ought not do that in our life. I've been at work when I was at Batesville working in the materials lab before I came to New Albany. We got a phone call one day. The contractor was fighting mad. Why are you so mad? Because your inspector is too by the book. Like I said, they were saying, I'm like, you're mad because he's doing his job. Okay? You're mad because he's doing his job. You're mad because, I don't want to get too technical on this tonight, but when we're doing a dirt job, we're testing dirt. We have this gauge. It's a nuclear gauge. It has a little nuclear source in the bottom of it, and you put that little probe down in the ground, and not to get too complicated, it will tell you how dense the dirt is. It'll tell you how close to perfect it is. We run a test. We take a sample of dirt. We pack it in, get the weight, get the water, moisture content, and all that stuff. And I can tell you, based off of that dirt, the best possible scenario, how strong that dirt can be. How much of that dirt you can pack into a certain area. The best density, the optimum density for it. So we figure that out in the lab. When we go out on the job, we use the nuclear gauge to test the dirt and see how close it is to perfect. So for easy numbers' sake, if the perfect scenario is 100 pounds per cubic foot density for that dirt, that's the best it can be. If everything is absolutely perfect, you can get to 100. It's the best it can be. If I go on the job and it reads 85, it's not good. It's not something that passes. We make them work on it again. We make them stir it up. We make them put better dirt in. We make them add water or dry it out, depending on what the problem is. So this individual, he would go and he would test the dirt. The gauge would tell him the dirt is not good, and the contractor would call us fussing because the inspector said his dirt that was not good was not good. It makes no sense whatsoever to complain about somebody who is doing things right. But that's what's happening. You go to the schoolhouse, and our kids ain't in here tonight, but y'all might remember when you were kids as well. You go in there, you make an A on the test, everybody else makes a C on, and guess what? You're an overachiever. You're an overachiever, and everybody wants to talk about how bad you are because you did better than them on the test. Or when you're growing up and you're acting right and your parents ain't getting on to you, they look at you and say, oh, Miss Goody Two-Shoes over here, they're too good. And they begin to throw shade at you because you're doing too good. You're doing too well. I don't know when we got to the point to where it became a bad thing to be good. When it became a bad thing to overachieve. When we got to the point where we would rather be a mediocre in everything that we try versus excelling and being good at it. When I was still being a youth pastor at Locust Grove, we had kids that would come in, and some of you parents will get this. They got to the high school or middle school age where we're too cool for school. It's not cool to participate anymore. It's not cool to remember our Bible verses anymore. It's not cool to help sing with the youth group. It's not cool to do anything but to sit there and act like you're too cool to be there. And by the way, when they sit there and act like they're too cool to be there, they look pretty dumb because they're like looking around all the time like they ain't got a clue what's going on. But they got to that point. And I finally just asked one of them one time, said, what's the deal? Why are we acting like this? You're not too good to be here. And in a bunch of different words, they essentially told me they didn't want to get singled out for being an overachiever. I'll give you one example tonight. kid, he was in Sue's class. Sue taught 4th through 6th grade. At 7th grade, they moved into my class. He's sitting there. He's a 5th grader at the time, him and another guy. They got bored in Sue's class. So they looked at Sue and said, we're bored in this class. We want to go to Brother Easton's class. So Sue kicked them out of her class and sent them in there with me on Wednesday night. They came in there, they met it one Wednesday night, and they came back to her the next week and said, we don't like it in there. He makes us do stuff. We want to be in here with you. Guess what she told them? Nope. You were too good to be in here. You were too good to be in my class. You were bored in here. You go on in there and get to be a part of it. So I've got a 5th grade boy that's now in class with up to seniors in high school. And at the end of preaching, if we had 10 minutes or so until the end of services, if Brother Doe was preaching along or whatever, we do trivia. I'd have you know that 5th grade boy was answering all the trivia questions to the point where all the high schoolers wanted him to be on their team. And all of a sudden, after they started bragging on him and talking about how good he was, a couple of them started saying he's just an overachiever. And as soon as he heard that, guess what happened? We quit raising our hand to answer the questions. We quit trying anymore. Because instead of us being better than all those around us and trying to excel to do the best we can, we would rather blend in with everybody else around us. That's what's happening here. That's what's going on with the children of Israel. That's what's happening in the land. It's been 45 good years of peace, but all of a sudden, all these other folks around them, to be more comfortable and to fit in more with them, we're going to try all the stuff that they're doing just so that we can make them comfortable and we can be comfortable. And at the end of the day, this is what's happening. Compromise is masquerading as complacency. You see, they look at it as, oh, we're just compromising, we're trying to find common ground, we're trying to be peaceful with those around us. But what they've really done, if they've decided instead that we're just going to be complacent and we're not going to go after God any harder than we have been. We're just going to float along. We're just going to hang out where we are. It kind of follows that saying, and I didn't do it in high school. I had good grades in high school, but when I get to college, Cal 1 hit me in the mouth. I went to engineering school and I said, I'm going to do this just like I did high school. I ain't studying nothing. My whole philosophy for high school was I would get to school 30 minutes early and I would cram for the test in my truck. I'd get in there and I'd make an A on it. I could do it in high school, but when I got to calculus, I had to have a 70 in order for it to transfer to Ole Miss. I got out of Cal 1 with a 70.1. Squeaked by. And then my favorite saying all of a sudden became, C's get degrees. I'm sure some of y'all have heard that as well. All of a sudden, it wasn't about A's and B's anymore. It was just getting the C, just getting the bare minimum I could so that I could get out of that school. Because we've got to the point to where we don't try our best anymore. We do just enough. And it's not just in our academics. I'm just using that because it fits well with the examples tonight. But it's in our Christianity as well. We do just enough to be considered okay. We do just enough studying, just enough praying, just enough memorizing Scripture, just enough of this and just enough of that so that we can kind of fit in a little bit, but we don't ever go the extra mile. We don't ever try to get any better. What have they done in the land of Israel here? They've said, well, it's been good for 45 years. Now we're going to be complacent. We're not going to strive to make it another 45 good years. We're going to be like everybody else all around us, and we're just going to hang out, and we're just going to float on along and let this take us wherever it takes us. They have said they're compromising, but really what they're doing is they're getting complacent on what is going on. They've gotten complacent with those around them, and because of that, they've gotten to a bad place. They are trying all of these different gods here. In verse 7, and the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of the children of Ammon. If you looked up a map tonight of Israel and the tribes there, you'll find, let me turn this way so I can do it right. You'll find down there at the southwest, you've got the Philistines, and up here in the northeast, you've got the children of Ammon, and they're going to come in and they're going to sandwich Israel between them. They're going to crush them in between them. So he's got enemies on both sides. Verse 8, in that year they vexed and oppressed the children of Israel 18 years. All the children of Israel were on the other side of Jordan in the land of the Amorites, which is in Gilead. Now remember, there's also some tribes that are on the east side of Jordan. These are the ones that are dealing with it. These are the ones who are having to deal with the vexations of the children of Ammon and the Amorites there, the ones that have come in and attacked them. The Ammonites there in the land of the Amorites. These are the ones that are attacking them and are hurting them. But I was curious about this. Nobody said nothing about it. The Bible tells you in verse 8 that year they vexed them and oppressed them. They've hurt them. They're attacking them. They're making them miserable. They're giving them a hard time. They have come in and they're acting as the punishing hand of God here. But nobody said anything. The children of Israel have just sat there and hung out. Nothing has changed whatsoever. And then verse number 9, moreover the children of Ammon passed over Judah to fight also against Judah, against Benjamin, and against the house of Ephraim, so that Israel was sore distressed. Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. You know what's interesting about those tribes? If I could label them this way, they are the heart of the kingdom of Israel. If you look at where their lands lie, they all land there in the middle. It's the heart of Israel. And now, something that was happening over here on the fringes, out on the other side of the Jordan River, has made its way into the homeland, into the very heart of Israel. And once that happens, verse number 10, and the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, saying, we have sinned against thee, both because we have forsaken our God, and also served Balaam. My question is this when I read that. Why did we not start crying out to God when they were hitting the land on the other side of Jordan? When it was on the fringes, before it hit the home front. When the wickedness was over there, we waited until it got into the midst of our heart of our country here before we ever said anything. Let me draw you a little comparison here. And I hope that this will make sense tonight. Is that not exactly what we've done as Christians in the country of America? Is that not exactly what we have done? California has been wicked a long time. But until it hit us in Mississippi and we started seeing the sodomites walking up down the street and the drag folks in our schools and our churches right here close to home, nobody batted an eye. Nobody said anything. We all just sat here and acted like it wasn't happening because it was happening way over there. No, it's not going to make it to Mississippi. It's not going to make it here. It's not going to make it into my community. It's not going to make it to my street. It's not going to make it to my neighborhood. We have the mentality that it's never going to make it to us, and it's always going to be out there, and as long as it's out there, we don't care. We don't care. We don't pray about it. We don't seek God about it. We don't stand up for it. We don't do anything to try to change it. Instead, we sit back and do the same thing the children of Israel have done for that first time frame there where they were attacking those on the east side of the Jordan River. They sat right there and did the same thing they've been doing for years. They have compromised, and their compromise is actually being complacency. Think about this with me tonight. We always want to ask the question, when did we get to this point in our country? When did things get this bad? When did we get to where we are right now? I would say that it's been coming for a while, but a lot of us, myself included, have the mentality of it's happening over there, so we'll let that be their problem, not our problem. We want to sit here and just act like we're separate from the other side of the country. As long as it's up there, it's not going to make it here. As long as we're not having to deal with it, it's not our problem. That's exactly what the children of Israel have done. But then all of a sudden, after the children of Ammon have got their head of steam, they have come through those tribes on the east side of Jordan. They're right smack dab in the center of the land of Israel, right in the middle of the nation. Now all of a sudden it's time to cry out to God because we need some help. I wonder why Christians weren't crying out to God a long time ago. I wonder why we wait for things to get so bad before we begin to pray. I wonder when it's going to be enough for us where we get serious about praying and seeking God about what's going on around here. Let me use another example. She's not here tonight, but when Miss Kathy was pushing that bill there about the marriage being between a man and a woman, she had called a bunch of local area pastors. I was still at Locust Grove at the time. She had called Brother Doug and said, I want you to call Delbert Hoseman and tell him we want that bill out of committee and we want it on the floor. I'm sure she probably said something along those lines here as well. But she said, I want all of the Christians calling and saying they want that bill out. Brother Doug stood up in the pulpit. He announced it. He said, I need y'all to call. If you are on board with this and you're voting your Bible, you ought to agree that marriage between a man and a woman, if you're in the church, that ought to be your stance on it. You need to call and do what you can. And he made a spiel about, we always wonder what we can do to help our country. Here's what you can do to help. Here's what you can do to have a chance to have an imprint and an effect on what's going on. And then the next service rolled around. Brother Doug stood up and he asked the question, how many of you called? There was less than 3 hands that went up in a sanctuary that had over 100 in it. And Brother Doug looked at us and rebuked us from the pulpit, and we all deserved it, and said, I don't want to hear anybody complain about how things are if you won't do anything to try to fix it. He said, if you wanted a chance to try to do something, there was your chance to call, and you didn't do nothing. So we all went home and pouted and got our binkies and our blankies out, and then we called, because I wasn't going to listen to it 2 services in a row. But I called. Told them I wanted the bill out of committee. Did it get it out of committee? I don't think it was my phone call that did it. I don't. But I'm glad I was able to do something. I was glad I was able to step up and try to help a little bit. The children of Israel here, they know it's happening on the fringes. But instead of drawing the line in the sand and saying it's not going to happen here, it's not going to take place here in the heartland, we're going to boot it out and be done with it now, we ought to be praying to God that He would stop it before it ever gets here. Instead, they never got serious about crying out to God until it was on the doorstep. What's it going to take for Myrtle, Mississippi? Me and Sue were talking to an individual the other day about schools and things of that nature. And we were talking about how bad some of the schools around the area have gotten and the different things that have been allowed to creep in. Things that were never happening when me and Sue were in school, or maybe there was just one oddball out there, and now it seems like there's one in every class. It's getting worse and worse and worse. And that individual looked at Sue and said, well, it ain't at Myrtle. I want my kids to go to Myrtle. And Sue looked at him and said, it will be. It will be. That's not a knock against Myrtle. But I can say this. It wasn't in North Pontotoc when I was there either. 10 years ago, it wasn't at Corinth High School, but now they have a litter box in the janitor's closet for the girl that identifies as a cat to use. And that's a true story. It wasn't here. It wasn't taking place. It wasn't here in our land. It wasn't here in our communities. It wasn't here in our churches. But it was on the fringes. It was right over there. It was in the bigger schools. It was in the more populous cities there. And if we don't begin to pray and to cry out to God now, it'll be here. It'll be here. And I understand that this world is going to get wicked before the Lord comes back. But I'm still praying for a space of grace. I'm still praying that the Lord would tarry just a little bit longer. There'd be more folks that would be saved. I've told Sue and I've told folks that I work with as well, I said I need the Lord to either come back in the next 2 to 3 years, or I need Him to wait until all my kids are saved. I understand that's somewhat selfish, but right now they haven't hit that age of accountability. I know they're going to heaven. And if He waits until they do hit that age, I want Him to wait long enough for them to get in before He comes back. And then somebody else would say, at that point in time, their babies are hitting that age, so they want Him to wait a little bit longer. So I get every single bit of that tonight, I do. But I'm still praying for a space of grace. I'm still praying that the Lord would keep some of these things from happening. And I want to tell you what happens if you don't pray this. And you're not on the offensive with your prayer instead of on the defense. The same thing that has happened to the children of Israel here in their nation could very well end up happening to us. They've cried out to God in verse number 10. Verse number 11, the Lord said unto the children of Israel, Did not I deliver you from the Egyptians, from the Amorites, from the children of Ammon, and from the Philistines, the Zidonians also, the Amalekites and the Maonites, did oppress you, and you cried to me, and I delivered you out of their hand. Verse 13 is an incredibly sad verse. Yet you have forsaken me and served other gods. Wherefore I will deliver you no more. No more. That's sad. Now, if you read ahead, you'll find that the Lord does still forgive, and it does still come around and help them and deliver them out of these troubles and trials. But for right here, for this purpose of this text tonight, what the Lord has told them is said, you have left me. And since you left me, I'm not helping you no more. Because what you've done is you've taken my grace, you've taken my mercy, and you've stomped all over it. And because of that, I'm not going to deliver you anymore. Because of that, I'm not going to help you anymore. I don't want to keep using His mercy and His grace as an occasion to sin. And I believe at this point the children of Israel have gotten so comfortable. They have gotten so locked into this little routine they've got. Hey, we'll do good for a little while. The judge dies and we go out and we do bad and we live it up and we get complacent. We compromise with those around us. We do whatever we want to do. And then when the hammer falls, it hurts for a little while. But then we say, God, we sin, deliver us. And He comes and He delivers us again. And then we're back in the good times. There's a lot of Christians that have been in that same pattern. I've been in that same pattern. I've been the one that has gone around and said, Lord, I'm going to do better if you'll just forgive me and help me. And then I'm in the same place making that same prayer just a couple weeks later. Well, what does the Bible say about it? Romans 6:1 says this. What shall we say then? Shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. How shall we that are dead to sin live any longer therein? He's having a discussion here. And he's talking about being under grace, not under the law. The law says you can't. And grace says He already did. You see, the law told everybody all the things you could not do. You could not do this and you could not do that. And if you studied the law any at all, it would be pretty much impossible to follow the law. I'm talking about next to impossible. I don't know how you could do it at all, to be honest. But as hard as the law was to follow, grace came by, and instead of saying you got to do, grace said it's already been done. Christ already did it for you. But He's having the discussion here, and He's saying, since Christ did die, and He did become the justification for our sins because of His blood, and He paid that sin debt, and we're pardoned because of that. Because we are clean in the eyes of God now, because we are saved, and when God looks at us in judgment, He does not see us. He sees Jesus Christ, who has become our propitiation for our sins, and He has stepped into our place. Because we do have that, is that a get out of sin free card where we can go and live it up how we want to? No, it's not. It's not. That's what Paul is saying there in Romans. He's saying, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? Since I am saved by grace, can I go and just sin as much as I want to and then just say, hey, grace, cover my sin over and over and over and over and over again? He says, God forbid that we do that. But then Romans 6:15 says, what then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law but under grace? God forbid. It's very clear in the book of Romans what he's saying. Just because you're forgiven, just because you're saved, just because you can claim the blood of Christ in your life does not give us an excuse to go and live however we want to. Just because the children of Israel time and time again have called out to God to deliver them, and He has, does not mean they ought to keep doing it over and over and over again. And right here it has become enough. It's become enough for the Lord. He says, I will deliver you no more. Verse number 14. Go and cry unto the gods which you have chosen. Let them deliver you in the time of your tribulation. That's pretty tough. That's pretty tough right there. To be in this big old pickle of a spot that they're in, where this enemy army has come in, and that word oppressed that was used carries the same idea as a millstone grinding. The Philistines on one end and the Ammonites on the other end, meeting in the middle and grinding them down as the weight the Bible is carrying there. And all that they're going through and the hard times that they're facing, all of a sudden they have come to their senses and they've called out to the Lord, and He's saying, nope, not this time. Not this time, because you're using my grace over and over and over again, and as soon as I fix the mess that you have made, you go right back into it. So I'll tell you what you do. All of those little g gods that you forsook me for, to go and to worship them, cry out to them and see if they'll help you. I wonder what would happen to our life if we've gotten to one of these tykes that we've made ourselves, and we've cried out to God, said, Lord, I've got to have some help. I need somebody to come and to help me. I need somebody to answer my prayers, to comfort me, to be with me, to be with my family. I need help, and I need it now. And the Lord looked at us and said, well, you done left me and tried everything else. Why don't you go try it again? You done tried everything else but me. You only call me when you need me. You don't ever pray. You don't ever read your Bible. You don't ever go to church. You're never a part of anything. I never hear your name until you need me for something. So wherever you've been all this time, go ask them for help. Can you imagine how awful that would be to be a child of God, and that's your answer? That's what the children of Israel got. That's the answer they got there. Because they had forsaken Him, He is supposed to teach them a hard lesson. Now, before this goes too far, this is not a sermon preaching that you can lose your salvation, that God's going to cut you off, okay? I'm not preaching that because that's not biblical and it's not right. But I will say this. There will come a time where He will let you learn some hard lessons. If you push Him away and you go and you do everything that you want to do and live the way you want to live, and you have no care for the consequences or your actions or whatever you're doing, He will let you learn some hard answers or some hard lessons. He will get your attention in some ways. He will let you go through some trials that'll bring you back in. Verse 15, the children of Israel said unto the Lord, we have sinned, do thou unto us whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. Deliver us only, we pray thee, this day. And they put away the strange gods from among them and served the Lord. What about the next part of that verse? And his soul was grieved for the misery of Israel. What happened? He's teaching them a hard lesson. He's teaching them a hard lesson, and he's watching them learn that lesson, and it's grieving him to do it. Maybe I can use this tonight to illustrate this. Parents, have you ever tried to teach your kid a lesson and they just will not learn it until they get to learn it the hard way? And you just got to sit there and say, well, they'll figure it out. Little Nate up here, when he's not screaming during preaching, likes to climb up and down our hearth at the house. We've got a fireplace, and there's a brick hearth, a stone hearth, and like a half circle that sticks out into the middle of the den. And it's about that high off the ground. And he'll get up on that hearth, and he'll sit, and he'll grin at you. And you'll say, you better be careful, you're going to fall. He'll grin at you again, and he'll crawl to the other end of it. And he'll turn and he'll look at you, and he'll grin. And then he'll go the other end, and he'll do it over and over and over again. And the first few times he got on the hearth, because that family or that house has been in the family since Papa built it in 1974, it's a rite of passage to bust your head on it when you're growing up. It got me, it got Trey, it got the cousins, it's got everybody. And we'll go down there, and we'll pick Nate up, and we'll set him on the floor and say, don't get on that thing. You're going to fall off and get hurt. What's he do? Before you make it back to the couch, he's back on the hearth. So you get him and you pull him down again. Quit getting up there. And he'll go and do it again. But one day, little Nate's going to fall off the hearth. And when little Nate falls off the hearth, me and Sue are just going to be in damage control to make it not as bad as it could be. but it might take him falling off before he learns his lesson and he don't do it anymore. When you were little and Mama said that stove is hot, we didn't believe her until we touched the hot stove and realized it really was hot. Sometimes we have to learn that lesson the hard way. And that's what the Lord is allowing to happen to the children of Israel right now. He's saying we've got to break this cycle here to where you get on good terms with me and then you go out and live however you want to live and then you come back when all the pieces are everywhere scattered and get me to put it back together for you. This is something that the church is dealing with so much today. So much. Folks will be in church and things will be good for 2 or 3 weeks and they get their life back where they want it. We'll go back out in the world. We'll live however we want to. And then when it all falls apart, we'll climb back in the house of God. We'll come to the altar. We'll rededicate our life. We'll get right with God. We'll clean things up. We'll be good for a month. And then we're gone again and come back. This is the 3rd church I've been a member of. I haven't been here long enough to see it, but the other 2 churches I've seen it. The other 2 churches I've heard somebody stand up multiple times and repent in front of God and everybody in the church and say, I have not lived my life the way I'm supposed to live my life here lately. I need to get right with God. And they do so good for a month or 2. And then they're gone again. Then like clockwork, 6 months later, we come back in, we get under conviction in the church service. I got to get right. I haven't done what I was supposed to be doing. I haven't lived my life the way I was supposed to live it. They come back and they get right, which is biblical, and I believe every single bit of that. But the point is simply this tonight. At what point in time have we gone out and lived how we want to and come back to the Lord to try to keep going on our little routine, thinking He's going to fix it like that for us, when He's going to look at us, He's going to say, not this time. This time you're going to learn that lesson the hard way. I don't know if you've ever gone through that season in your Christian life where you've put a wall up between you and God. And then you get to the point where you really feel like you need Him, and you pray and pray and pray, and you feel like your prayers ain't going nowhere. I don't know if you've ever been there. If you haven't, count yourself lucky, because I have. I've been to that point where I've gone and done my thing, and then when I come back in and I've cried out to the Lord, it's taken months to get back where I was. I used that little illustration here one time, and I'll close down this way. Miss Angie, if you want to get ready tonight, I'll just close down with this. I used that illustration when I first got here. I don't even know if I was the pastor yet or not. But there was a man who had been telling God no on salvation over and over and over again. Every service he was under conviction, and he kept saying no. Kept saying no. Kept saying no. And finally one time he said no, and the Lord just quit dealing with him. Just left him. Quit convicting him. Quit trying to get him to be saved. Just said, all right, big boy, if you want to say no to me, I'll just let you say no. I'll just let you go. And he said he got under such deep depression because he wanted the Lord to come back. And he was saying to himself, if you'll just come back, I'll get saved. If you'll just come back. And he sat down in the revival service. And the Lord came across and stirred those slumbering chords again. And he jumped up in the back of the church, threw his Bible in the air, and started screaming, he's back, he's back, he's back. And he went and got saved. What happened? What happened? I'll tell you what happened. He spent his life living how he wanted to, expecting God to be there at his beck and call. That's not how God operates. God's not on our schedule. He's not on our schedule tonight. And at some point in time, if we don't quit the cycle of living our way and then coming back, we might have to learn a lesson the hard way. And it might be that we get to that stretch where we're praying and praying and praying and we don't feel Him. And we don't have a shout, and we don't have a joy, and we don't have that peace. Not that we've lost our salvation, but we can lose that joy if we get out of touch with Him. I've heard it said before that the most miserable person on the face of the earth is a child of God that's out of His will. I've lived it. It's a miserable place to be. It's not one that I would recommend anybody go to. But that's where the children of Israel have found themselves. Out of the will of God and trying to get back in. And sometimes it's a hard lesson to learn. Brother Easton, what are you trying to say tonight? I'm trying to say, don't wait till it gets that bad. Don't wait until it gets there to the middle of our lives, or it gets to the middle of our churches, the middle of our communities. We don't need to be stuck in this cycle of going and living our way and then just coming back when it's convenient for us. We ought to have a desire to stick with Him regardless of what's going on. Let's all stand tonight as she plays. I'm done.